So, I've heard you like fantasy, so we have a little bit of fantasy here for you. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, one of my subs, get your mind off the gutter. It's not that kind of sub. It's a subscriber for this channel, and that's a reminder that you should subscribe. This month it's my birthday, so make a present for me and subscribe to the channel, press the like button, and share this video if you like it. So one of my subscribers asked me when I'm going to have a Malazan Book of the Fallen review. And here's the problem. There's one problem about this. This is the first book of Malazan Book of the Fallen, Guards of the Moon. You see how battered is the cover, and you see the cover. And in case you're not familiar with the series, it's not the current one. So that means that I'm a very old Malazan fan. I've read the first book back in 2004, I believe. And I finished the entire series by 2014, as far as I remember, or 2015, I'm not certain about this, and it's currently 2020, so there's no way in hell I'm able to do a decent review out of a series I've read so long ago. What I'm going to do, however, is I'm going to do why you should read Malazan Book of the Fallen, because you should definitely read this series. It's amazing, it's a classic, it's a modern classic of the fantasy genre, and I'll tell you why. Malazan Book of the Fallen was super popular in the Zeros. It was as popular as Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time between fantasy fans. And if you don't remember the Zeros, fantasy was a huge thing, epic fantasy books that were its volume killed about 1 acre of Amazon forest. Very thick books. It's 10 books long, and it's about 10,000 pages long. And despite being very popular, it never became a TV show like Game of Thrones did, like A Song of Ice and Fire did, and also the upcoming Wheel of Time series. This didn't make it because, let's be honest, Malazan Book of the Fallen is A, fucking huge. That's a technical term, it's fucking huge. And B, it's very reader unfriendly. It's a series that's basically one huge epic story, and it's mostly told through the adventures and the campaigns of an allied super unit of the Malazan Empire called the Bridge Burners. And its book, except for the ninth one, The Dust of Dreams, is self-contained in a way. Yep, that's dangerous. Having these books on my desk. It has a complete story, meaning there is a premise. It starts with a premise and some characters going out to do certain stuff, and it's not the same because most of the books are written in a diverging endpoint, meaning we have a lot of characters, a lot of plot lines that start in different places and they merge towards the end to finish the story and great climax. Also, its book continues arcs or develops arcs for the next books of the series. So yes, it's tied together, and actually some books are direct sequels to other books. Guardians of the Moon, the first book in the series, starts in an epic battle. We have the Malazan Empire, who are not the good guys. They fight against a rebel army in one of the continents they have conquered, and they fight against Anomandarake and Standi, who are sort of like the Dark Elves. Anomandarake is the Elric of this world, and he's a demigod fighting the continent of Nabakis, and it's the Battle of Jerkistan just taking over one city. And the book starts with a huge epic battle, and the first 100 pages of Guards of the Moon, the casualties, the main characters that die, are probably more than the entire cast of A Song of Ice and Fire. And believe me, many, many more will die as the series progresses. And the series is not quite grimdark. It's military fantasy, and in war, people die. That's a reality, and it's huge. There are tons and tons of characters in these books, and not everybody gets out of it alive, and some awful things happen. So yes, it comes with a trigger warning for mostly everything because it's war, and it's war. It's most brutal. However, there is a lot of humor too. Many of the characters are military, so they have nicknames. They have the camaraderie that comes with the military life. There's some great swearing. I mean, this book has the phrase "Hood's balls." And Hood is a skeleton god of death. So I think just this phrase, "Hood's balls," makes this series noble worthy on its own. That good at cursing is always great. And we also have a deep magic system that is never properly explained in the series. So yeah, this can be a bit of a hurdle for many of you. Bear something in mind. I'll say this once, and it's very important for you reading the series that Malazan Book of the Fallen, while it is a great fantasy series, it can be very frustrating. One of the most frustrating things is that nothing is properly explained. There are no huge info dumps. People just reference a lot of lore and a lot of magic stuff and races, and they're never explained. There are no info dumps. The reader is assumed to know what the characters know, and that's quite a change from most of the fantasy literature of today, where there are huge info dumps, and there are also a number of zombie plots, meaning there are plots that start in one book and are not ending, or we have little snippets of plot lines in one book that will leave you scratching your head. There is also my pet peeve. There are some parts where their characters having pages and pages of inner monologues. They ponder on morality, mortality, and their existence. There's so many existential inner monologues that can they can get pretty annoying at some points. So you have to soldier through some parts of these books, and once we learn about one of the continents of the world, we're thrown to another. Because in books 1 and 3, we have one continent. Books 2 and 4, we've got another. And once we get into the point that one book is about one rebellion, the other book is about another rebellion, we get Midnight Tides, which is a third continent. It's years before the first 4 books, and there's an entirely new magic system in this continent. Because nothing is simple and we cannot have nice things. And then again, there is All the Hounds, the 8th book in the series, which can break some readers. This book is bad. This is the one bad book of this series, in my opinion. I know some of you will disagree, and some very important stuff happened in this book, but it was just so and so, at least for me, and for many other readers, as far as I know. But whatever. What you really get in its book, most of the books, okay, is that you have an amazing, breathtaking climax. Because Malazan Book of the Fallen, on its own, is full of some amazing, exciting, emotional, fascinating storylines. I mean, you get the last 300 pages of The House Gates, The Chain of Dogs, and that's shocking. I just shiver thinking of this part, and I've read this book 15 years ago. And then you get the Memories of Ice, and the entire book is one amazing battle because we've met the main characters in Gardens of the Moon, and here they sign. And it's an amazing book. And then once you get to the Bone Hunters, which is after the midpoint of Malazan Book of the Fallen, and some of the different plot lines start to converge. It's hard to even manage these books, so you get that. Some of the main plot lines converge. We get some of the best fantasy battles ever written series. And Steven Erikson, who is an anthropologist and has a very good picture of history and battles, and clearly is inspired by historical books and has done his research and also has done a fresh set of writing. He had eight of those books out every 18 months on schedule, which is quite a feat for the fantasy genre where you know what happens with long series and how they get delayed for years and years. There are also lots and lots of characters who are of various powers. We have from mere mortals to gods, and each of them is varied. They have their personalities, their own quirks. Uh, okay, they have pretty much the same inner monologues. That's one of the my pet peeves about the series, and they will stay with you forever. I'll probably forget many characters if I name drop them, but I really, really love Quick Ben. Quick Ben was one of my favorite characters. Was a badass. If I ever do a favorite badass fantasy characters, he's in there. And now we get to something I said earlier that in this series nothing is explained, and that's the best part of the series, in my opinion. No, the amazing fantasy battles is just a bonus. The real charm of the series, the real beauty of it, is that nothing is explained, and I'll tell you why. Because at some point, if you soldier through some of the rougher parts of the series, you'll probably get an explanation for the lore. You may meet some characters that are constantly referenced for many books, and you'll get an aha moment because wow, this Gothar's Folly I've been reading all along is this thing that is explained somewhere later in some of the zombie plots that happened in one book. Well, you know, a sip actually is explained some books later how it started or what is its role in the grand scheme of things. This randomness, this way that something without apparent meaning happens and gets its own meaning later, or it's explained and you get the idea about what is important about it, it's very satisfying because it brings a semblance to the Malazan world being a real world, a real living and breathing world where not everything is tied to the protagonists. It's really huge because those parts that are seemingly unrelated come together in its own way, and there is a huge. There is something Alan Moore once said that there's no one conspiracy. There are a lot of conspiracies happening together, and chaos ensues. And this is how Malazan works. There is a huge master plan that is happening in these books, but outside forces constantly come and they bring chaos, and much of the storyline it's about chaos, the crippled god, the god of chaos, bringing chaos to this world. So that makes the world much more immersive. It makes it feel more real. Not everything is blotted, and that's great. And once you get the connections about how this reference ties to the world or ties to another character or to this new elements we have so introduced, it feels amazing. It feels like a feat because you're not given anything. You just have to piece the information together. I don't know if you're gamers, but if you've ever played Dark Souls, which is one of the most brutal games ever according to the internet and according to people who've played it, you may remember that the first time you opened a shortcut to the early areas after fighting for hours through some careless landscapes and defeating bosses, and now you can get there with some simple steps. It feels like an achievement, even though it's something very simple that any other game would have given you for free. And it feels amazing. And Malazan's that, where other fantasy novels would have given you this information for free, you have to fight to get them in this one. And this is amazing. This is so refreshing because there are no info dumps. It's just you read and you learn stuff. That's the way to do it. I mean, there is one character that every time I encountered, I was like, hey, we're reading about this character. Make no sense. And then you get to the end, where all the different plot lines and all the events from three different continents converge together. finally for one final showdown, and you see the role this character plays, and it makes perfect sense to have him there, and his entire travel throughout those books. And once you get to the end, the epilogue is emotional. It's one of those books that almost made me cry with how emotional it was, how it conveyed everything, how the ending encapsulated all the messages of this series in such an exciting way. I just had to go, I wanted to go back and read it from the beginning just to see what I might have missed, because once you reach the ending and you see what was happening all along, the entire series gets new meaning. You just have to go there and reread to see how everything ties together and what was part of the master plan and where it diverged. I'll tell you what, Malazan Book of the Fallen is not a perfect series. It gets a bit of How I Met Your Mother syndrome, meaning that the end was planned from the beginning and the books were written towards it, but some of the characters, yes, Karsa, I'm talking about you, grew while the series were being written. So the ending, the way these characters and some plot lines tied to the ending feels underwhelming. But Malazan is something more. It's a series that takes the fantasy genre, the epic fantasy genre, and takes it to its ultimate form. It's a hardcore fantasy series for hardcore fantasy fans who are getting tired of the constant use of the same old cliches. And they will love the series because it does something much greater. And I think you should soldier through some of the rough patches because this series is amazing, especially as you get tired of fantasy. In my opinion, in my experience, since I've read this in a period of 10 years, I started reading Guard of the Moon as a relatively experienced fantasy reader, and I was getting underwhelmed. But as I read the next books, and the next book, and the next book, and between those books, I was reading other fantasy, and I was getting jaded with the fantasy genre. Books felt so much better because they ditched some of the tired conventions of the genre and they did something amazing, something new. It felt like the end game for a fantasy reader. If you're a fantasy fan, you should definitely, once you feel that you're jaded with fantasy, go read Malazan Book of the Fallen. And you'll find this very rewarding. But again, it's a hardcore fantasy series. I would suggest a new reader start with Malazan Book of the Fallen. And I have to mention here that there is also a prequel trilogy. There is a sequel trilogy being written at the moment. I'm not sure about where in this book. And there are also some 7, I think, spin-off books by the Malazan World co-creator, Ian C. Esselmont. I've got the Knight of Knives here. I haven't read that one yet. I've only read the main series, the main 10 books of the Malazan series by Steven Erikson. That was my opinion, why you should read Malazan Book of the Fallen, what to expect, and also why you should read it. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, press the like button, subscribe for more fantasy and sci-fi and horror related stuff and other geeky stuff. If you've read the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, leave a comment below. What was your opinion? Have you managed to go through or have you tapped out? And where? I almost tapped out in House of Sane because cars are long in the first 200 pages. It was too much for me. And I'll see you soon in another video. Thank you for watching.